Skin irritation around the stoma can be caused by so many different things. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about some of those causes and what to look out for. Hey guys, it's Maggie and I am back today. And before we get into today's topic, I would love that if you enjoy this video, please subscribe, like the video. While I do talk a lot about educational topics relating to Crohn's disease and ostomies, I am not a walking, talking advertisement for stomas. I do live a life beyond that, so I also share that on YouTube. I share little vlogs with my husband and our dogs and our lives, so if you like that kind of content too, you will also find that here. Before we start talking about this topic, I would like to give a little disclaimer. As a patient who may be experiencing skin or stoma issues, please go to your healthcare provider with these issues. This video is intended for A, entertainment purposes, but also B, to help you understand what you may be looking at. But these healthcare providers can help you in your individual situation. As a nurse or a healthcare provider that may be watching these videos, I'm hoping that this gives you insight into what living with a stoma actually looks like, especially in the home setting. Skin irritation can have a great impact on someone's life. I know that my skin today looks pretty dang good. It took a lot of work to get here, but there was a point at which I was really struggling, and I will share the video above up here. I'll link it here so you can see what my skin used to look like. Skin irritation can really impact a person's quality of life. It's not just about having healthy skin around the stoma. I remember when I had really terrible skin, I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to go out because not only was it painful around my stoma, it was quite painful, I felt like I didn't know if my bag was going to stick or not. So it's definitely not just having nice peristomal skin. It goes a little bit deeper than that. So in today's video, I would really like to cover irritant dermatitis, allergic dermatitis, and fungal infections. There are so many other things that can happen with your skin, but these are the ones that I want to focus on for this video. I think one of the most common things that us ostomy patients experience is irritant dermatitis, usually related to leaks, because as stool or mucus or urine sits on our skin, it can break it down. Usually you'll see this closest to the skin, and the skin might appear red and raw and weeping, and it can be very painful or itchy. If you start to feel this itchiness or burning, it is very likely that you are starting to have a leak. Even if you're not seeing outward signs of a leak like physical stool or mucus or urine coming out the side of the flange, you're probably starting to get a leak. And if you have a patient complaining of itchiness or burning, again, it's a leak. The flange does need to be changed. It's better to do this earlier than wait even an hour, because the longer that they have a flange on where the excrement is on the skin, it's going to continue breaking that skin down and make the problem worse. Something else that I notice when my ostomy flange is about to leak, I will feel lifting, and it's kind of like if you put a sticker on your skin and peel it off. It's a very similar feeling, just around your stoma. So I'll check for this by lifting up on the edges of my flange. A lot of flanges have a floating ring, so I'll usually tuck my fingers underneath of that and pull forward. I'll press it back down, pull forward again, and if I feel it lifting off of my skin, I know that likely I do not have a good seal and that my output will leak underneath of that flange. There are a few different products that really help with this. The main one actually being your ostomy flange. Your ostomy flange is basically a wound care product. Most of them are made out of hydrocolloid, a product that helps pull fluid off the skin. I don't know where the heck I saw this, and I'm worried it was a dream or something. I would put the reference if I knew where I saw it, but it was recent. Hydrocolloid was actually developed for dental use, and whoever started to work on ostomy bags and like progressing them forward, because they have come a long way, let me tell you, they saw that this hydrocolloid was really good at remaining adherent, even though it was wet. So that's a really great thing for us ostomates who are putting out fluid of some sort, but we need a product to stick to our skins because we need our bags to stick to our skins. It really is a cool product. You may notice if you have a stoma that after a few days of wearing your flange, you'll pull it off, and right around where your stoma sits, you'll notice it looks kind of puffy, like it absorbed fluid, and that's because it did. I find that sometimes just changing the flange is enough intervention to help heal my skin. I don't have to do anything extra because maybe I cut my flange a little too large, where the stoma goes through, and I will make sure the next time I very precisely cut that stoma opening to ensure that it's flush against my stoma. The other two products that help quite a bit with irritant-based skin irritation is Skin Barrier, which can come in a spray form or a wipe form, and stoma powder. Skin Barrier is really helpful for sealing in the skin, protecting it. Some people even say that they find their flange sticks better when using this first. This is something that I use each time that I change my ostomy flange. And it can be used in conjunction with your stoma powder. It can help seal this in because stoma powder is powder. For anybody who wears makeup, if you have powder on your face and then you try to stick something on it, you'll notice it peels right off. Same problem with stoma powder. So this is a great way to seal it in so your flange isn't just peeling the powder right off. Stoma powder is something that I don't use every time that I change my ostomy. I only use it when I see really active, open, weeping red skin, and this is a product that it's better to use less of than more. Like I said, it's not going to stick very well if you use a ton of powder. I've seen nurses put the powder on and then take a little piece of gauze to brush away the excess. What I find easiest is actually just using a little air puff. I tap the bottle to make sure the powder's at the bottom, and that way there's air at the top, and I squeeze it around my stoma to blow away any excess. All wounds need an environment that's conducive to healing, and that can be a very specific environment. You don't want it to be too dry, you don't want it to be too moist, so these products help to keep enough moisture in there, but also keep it fairly dry so new cells can develop and grow and heal your skin. Now let's talk about allergic dermatitis. This is something that happens less frequently than the irritant dermatitis, but in my own personal opinion, I think that this happens more often than we realize. I've talked to a lot of patients who, have skin irritation, but they're not quite sure why. It doesn't quite seem to be a fungal infection. It doesn't seem to be because they're having leaks. There's just something going on, and they change their product out and their skin heals. I really like to talk about this particular skin irritation because I think it gets ruled out pretty quickly when there are really simple solutions to this, like changing a product. So I just want to keep our vision a little bit more open about it for nurses to help their patients and for patients to understand that skincare is not black and white. Allergic dermatitis usually appears wherever the product is sitting long term. Be smart about it. If you see redness only where a tape border sits, a simple solution to try is ordering a flange that doesn't have a tape border. I've seen a lot of people have problems with this specifically, so just to let you know, most flanges are made with and without a tape border, so you can do a really simple exchange and get one without and try that. And just a quick reminder, I know I mentioned this in the beginning, but as a nurse or another healthcare provider, please talk to your team about this if you suspect this. As a patient, please go to your stoma nurse because there are other interventions that they can do, other medical interventions like medications that can be used that can help with allergic dermatitis. So really important to keep them informed about everything you're experiencing or everything you're seeing with your patient. Okay, what about fungal infections? This is the third one. Fungal infections are pretty common with ostomates because we have the perfect environment. Not only is it a dark, potentially moist area for some sort of yeast or something to grow, oftentimes as patients we have something else going on. We might be on immunosuppressants, we may have just been on antibiotics, we may have an illness that immunosuppresses us, and all of this just creates a great environment for fungus to grow. There are certain products, prescription products like nystatin powder, which is really helpful. It's an antifungal powder that you can use around the stoma. They're really helpful, but just as equally important, I, in my own opinion, think, keeping a dry environment. You can keep treating with nystatin powder and it might get rid of it, but if you've got wet skin, it's gonna come back. I kind of like to talk about the allergic and the fungal together because of my own personal experience with skin irritation. Now, I've had my ostomy for 14 years. I am not a WOCN, but I was a registered nurse. I still have my license, but I don't practice. I worked on a GI floor where I saw lots of ostomy patients, pediatric-wise, and I also worked as a telehealth ostomy nurse alongside WOCNs. They were so knowledgeable and I learned so much from them, but I am not the expert. WOCNs, wound ostomy incontinence nurses, they're the experts here. But with my own skin issues, I had a severe skin problem pop up a couple of years ago. And it just goes to show you how complex these wounds can really be. With my skin irritation, I of course did go see a WOCN after trying everything that I had been taught in nursing school and in my career of nursing and from WOCNs I worked with, and I couldn't get anything to work. I dumbfounded the WOCNs that saw me because they said, "You're clearly educated about stomas and it looks like you have a chemical burn." At the time, I was using Coloplast bags. I had actually been using them successfully. I really liked the actual bags of them. I think they're really sleek. But I noticed increasingly that it was not working for my skin. And I didn't know at the time if it was Coloplast or if my skin had an infection or what the heck was going on. But over time, I kind of learned that maybe I had a couple of different things going on. I kept trying individual solutions that were not fully taking care of the problem. I might see a little bit of improvement, but it would usually get worse pretty quickly. If you want to see what my skin looked like, I will put a link in the description to a previous video where I was talking about it, and I include what my skin looked like. But I had a very clear, patchy, kind of raised red skin. It was shiny. It was weeping like crazy. It started off kind of itchy, but it just really progressively got more painful. I was miserable. Anytime that moisture was introduced to my skin, whether it be getting a shower, bathing, being out in the rain, just it being humid outside, it was progressively worse, which I know you're probably thinking, fungal infection? Was that it? I couldn't get a flange to stick to me for more than a couple hours. I remember just like throwing flange extenders on there to try and tape the thing down, and then whatever it was, my irritated skin would start to go outwards towards the flange extender, so I was like, I probably shouldn't keep using these. It was rough. It was rough. And it was kind of like a chicken or the egg situation, and this is just my own belief. Obviously, I saw the WOCN, but they were just as confused as me about it. I personally believe, I don't know which started it, but I feel like they both built upon each other. I think it was a little bit of allergy and a little bit of fungal. Whatever one started it weakened the skin, and they just progressively kept feeding off of each other. The allergy maybe, irritated the skin, got in there, made it worse, made it weep, which didn't help the fungal infection and, created a nice wet environment, and they just kept going off of each other. I would try different solutions for both fungal and allergic dermatitis, and they'd help like maybe a little bit, but I couldn't find anything that just worked. And then I started to realize that maybe I have to try multiple things. Maybe I have to tackle this from all angles. So when I went to a WOCN, they suggested I try Marathon. Marathon is like a super glue for your skin. I think it is super glue. I think the main ingredient is what's in super glue. If you've ever gotten Gorilla Glue on your hands and you feel your skin, like your fingertips, and how they're like, they feel like dry and hard, that's exactly what it does to your peristomal skin, except It's gentle. Some people said it burns. I personally didn't find it burnt even the most open raw skin, so I was very thankful for that. We started with this though. I would put a nice light layer of stoma powder on my skin, seal it in with Marathon. I think what that did was it allowed the stoma powder to do its job without being interfered with by any outside forces, whether it be my flange if I was allergic to that, or moisture from my environment. The Marathon just kept it in like a nice little globe and let it do its thing, healing, drying up the skin, getting rid of the fungus in there. I wasn't even using nystatin powder. I just was keeping it dry on that weeping skin. And the Marathon also allowed my flange to stick to me, so I was getting a longer wear time, which just maybe didn't help my skin so much, but helped me in a quality of life way. I also believe the Marathon gave me a thick enough barrier, something that a regular skin barrier spray or wipe wasn't giving me. I think it created a thick enough layer to block me from touching a flange that potentially I was allergic to. Something else I did at this time was protecting my flange from moisture. Normally, flanges are supposed to be fine in water, for swimming, showering, they should stick just fine, but because I had this weeping skin, any additional moisture worsened the weeping skin and made the flange peel off. So I was using products like AquaGuard, or I was taping a Ziploc bag to my stomach right above where my flange sat and just putting a piece of like micropore tape to try and protect it. I didn't want to take baths. I didn't want to go swimming. I remember at the time we went to an amusement park with water rides, and I went on a water ride, and thank goodness I had a complete change of supplies because the flange would not stick to me after we went on that ride. No matter how much I tried to dry it after being in water, whether it was the shower or a bath or just going on a water ride, I couldn't get it to dry enough where the flange would continue to stick to me. All of this helped, and so I thought, let me trial off of the Marathon. The Marathon was so helpful in creating that nice protective seal on my skin, but it's expensive. It is very expensive. I think that there are other versions of it that might be more affordable, but I think all of them are not the cheapest. They are not the same price as regular skin barrier. So I would trial myself off of the Marathon, and I would notice the problem creep up again. So this really clued me in that maybe there was an allergic component to this, where I needed that thick layer to not have my skin react. So then what I decided to do when I checked with my WOCN, I decided to try a little bit of a steroid. You have to be extremely careful with steroids. You don't want to use them on actively open skin. So I just used it after my skin was healed with the Marathon, and I wanted to see if it calmed my skin down enough. It's used for allergies. I was just gonna use it in a different way. So I would just take a couple of spritz right onto my skin, and I would rub it in, especially around the areas that seem to be really prone to the issue of kind of getting all funky and red and weepy. And then I sealed it in with regular skin barrier, and that worked. This really had me thinking that at least partially my skin issues was being caused by the products I was using. I wound up switching my manufacturer for the ostomy flanges that I was using, and I found that it seemed like to me Coloplast was the one that my skin was having the issues with. I think normally I was fine with Coloplast, but I think the skin got weak and it allowed Coloplast products to like infiltrate and just kind of worsen, which allowed my skin to weep, and it was just kind of like a cyclical thing. I found that I didn't have nearly this issue with Hollister or Convatec products, which is what I use now. I kind of go back and forth between the two. And this is something that I try to research. I cannot find any evidence of this, so I don't want you to take it as fact. It is something that I heard from a WOCN through a friend that worked on a colorectal floor. She's a nurse practitioner, and she worked directly with WOCNs, and I kind of just wanted to talk it out with her, see if she had any ideas of why my skin was being ridiculous. So she talked to her WOCN, and this is something interesting. Again, can't find it on the internet, can't find any evidence. I couldn't find anywhere that Coloplast listed out their ingredients of what makes up their flanges. So this is me just going off of what somebody said. This person had said that she noticed patients that had fruit allergies had sensitivity to Coloplast products. I have an allergy to fruit and vegetables. Not all of them, and it is not severe enough to do anything about it. It doesn't affect me whatsoever. The only thing that happens when I eat certain fruits and vegetables is my mouth gets itchy. Sometimes my throat gets itchy. I drink some water to flush it out, and I'm fine. I don't even list it on my allergies with my hospital because then they won't give me like cherry flavored ices or whatever. I don't tell anybody because it literally does not impact me other than an itchy mouth. But it made me think about it because I've had that for as long as I can remember. And it makes me wonder if maybe that had something to do with it. Trying all of these different products allowed my skin to heal to the point that you see it today. I mean, I get comments saying, wow, your skin looks really good. And I'm very thankful for that. It really was a lot of trial and error, trying multiple products at once, trying different methods, and then pulling back on them to see what I wouldn't have to continue. At this point in time, all I use is a little bit of steroid spray, again, 2 spritz, rub it around the skin, and then I seal it in with a skin barrier. I typically use a spray, but if I'm on the go, I like to use the wipes because then I'm not bringing a bottle with me. And then I'm able to put my flange directly on my skin. I try to avoid Coloplast products. The 2 products that seemed to bother me the most was the 𝐛𝐮𝐬𝐬 flange and then the Brava flange extenders, and I know a lot of people love them and I really loved them too. It's just sometimes our skin does not agree with certain items, and that's just the way it worked out for me. I can shower, I can swim, I can go on the water rides without having to worry about a bag change. My flange sticks perfectly in water and it doesn't peel up and I don't start to have skin weeping, so I'm very grateful for finally finding the method that works for me. I share this story when we talk about fungal and allergic and irritant dermatitis. I like to talk about it because I'm hoping to change the way that we look at peristomal skin problems. I think sometimes we look at it as, here's what I think your problem is, and here is your one solution. Whereas I think we should look at the skin as a whole and realize that there can be more than one thing going on, and it can build upon each other. You know, if you've got weeping skin, you're just making a nice moist environment, which then can help harbor a yeast infection. So you can have multiple things going on, and even though it's often recommended to introduce one solution at a time, sometimes it might take a few different things to improve your skin, and that's what I found. There are a number of other things that can go on with peristomal skin, and I could talk about them, but I think that this video would be far too long, and you probably wouldn't want to watch it. But things like fistulas, pyoderma gangrenosum, folliculitis, just hair follicle problems. You can have stoma separation. Oh my gosh, there are so many different things that can happen with your skin. I just wanted to talk about probably the 3 most common. Hopefully this video gave you a good understanding that it's not always just irritant dermatitis. It's not just because your patient had a leak. There can be other things going on. And also for patients, I think sometimes we can get dismissed, like, just use stoma powder. Just use stoma powder and that'll fix your problem. Sometimes it can be more complicated than that, and you're not crazy. You're not crazy for wanting to try different solutions and new things, because when your skin irritation is bad, it can impact every portion of your life. I mean, it just delves into every little thing, so that's why I wanted to make this video. Hopefully this was helpful to you to take back to your team that you work with, or if you're a patient, to your healthcare providers, and hopefully it was enjoyable for you. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Bye, guys.